So our first speaker is Brad Benggio. He is the NOAA SSC for our region. So he attended the University of South Carolina for studies in marine science and Nova University for studies in coastal zone management. His career with the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration began in 1980 as an officer in NOAA's commissioned corps. In addition, in serving NOAA's uniformed service aboard oceanographic research ships as a pilot for a variety of NOAA fixed-wing aircraft, and as a research scientist, he worked in a variety of other support duties and locations before transitioning to NOAA's Office of Response and Restoration. His career has been focused on environmental pollution from oil and chemical spill preparedness, contingency planning, and emergency response. Over the years, Brad has authored over 20 scientific papers addressing various aspects of oil spill response and response planning, as well as numerous response guidance and policy documents for the regional response team. So without further ado, Brad.
Good morning. Good morning. I know some of you.
So you have a slide.
And those that know me probably seen some of this before, so I'll have a little refresher. And if I get something wrong, just let me know, because sometimes I forget stuff. So as Monica said, I've been the NOAA Scientific Support Coordinator here for the Southeast and the Caribbean since about 1980, and it's been a great job. I've really enjoyed doing it. The responses aren't so frequent that it kills us like some of my counterparts over in the Gulf of Mexico. It seems like they have oil spills every day over there. So I'm a little fortunate. I get to do things like this more than they do. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit this morning about what the NOAA Scientific Support Coordinator role is and what we do and what we provide. And at any point, if you have any questions, please let me know. So this is the organization I work for. It's the Office of Response and Restoration. And we have 4 divisions in there. The Emergency Response Division that I work for. And so we're the ones that provide the scientific support during an emergency response and support the Coast Guard and sometimes other federal on-scene coordinators. We have the Assessment Response Division that I think you're going to hear from Dan Hahn a little bit more about later, that look at impacts from oil spills and issues related to damages to those resources and recovery. And then we have a marine debris program that deals with assessing and trying to coordinate activities to address different marine debris issues. And then the newest component of Office of Response and Restoration is this Disaster Response Center in Mobile, Alabama, that helps coordinate some of the regional preparedness and training activities related to emergency response for the Gulf region. So we've been around since 1976. I think I got another slide on that. But since that time, we've been known throughout the country as NOAA Hazmat. We're really not NOAA Hazmat anymore. We're the Office of Response and Restoration now, but we still use that legacy term because that's what most people know us as. And I'll just point out, for those of you who have interest, this website address, which is response.restoration.noaa.gov. That's our website, and if you've never visited that and have interest in oil spill science, that's a good place to find a lot of useful things. A lot of our guidance and tools and software programs and mapping elements and things like that you can find on that website, and it's very useful. So as I said, we got our start in 1976 during a spill from a a tanker of the M motor vessel Argo Merchant off Nantucket. And the Coast Guard at that time decided to go up and assess that spill and see what kind of response actions were needed. And they invited NOAA to come along and said, you know, it'd probably be good to have some kind of science and technical advisors on scene when we go to these things. Why don't you come along with us and let's see if there's a good fit and a good role for NOAA to help us do that. And so NOAA went along with the Coast Guard in 1976, and out of that came this partnership to support the Coast Guard during oil spill response. So we put this program together to do that and support each Coast Guard district with a scientific support coordinator. And that scientific support coordinator is for that district the single point of contact for NOAA's resources to help with those oil spill or chemical spill events. So this is kind of like who we are, sort of the science officer for the Federal Unseen Coordinator. This is what, you know, the SSCs, there's about 12 of us around the country scattered around. And, you know, when our mothers ask us, what is it that you guys do? And so we try to explain it to them. It's sort of like, you know, Spock on Star Trek, the science officer, try to coordinate that stuff. And so one of my associates showed this same slide to a group of fairly young folks trying to explain that concept of science officer, and I guess they were a little too young. Nobody knew who Spock was, so it didn't go over too well. So, but I guess most of you in this room have heard of Spock. So at any rate, this is my little cartoon, the Federal Unseen Coordinators, and kind of think of the SSC as a genie in the lamp. So they got a big incident, something bad happened. Let's get the SSC down here and start helping us figure out what we need to do and the best ways to do it to help protect the environment, bring the environment back to its pre-spill conditions. And so we go and help coordinate that. And I like to stress that we are coordinators. We're not necessarily the greatest know everything scientists in the world, but we do have pretty good expertise and a history of coordinating that with our own in-house resources, as well as other academic resources around the country, industry resources around the country, and experts for whatever the issue may be. We can help coordinate those issues for the Federal Unseen Coordinator. So under the National Contingency Plan, we are one of the special teams identified to help during emergency response. And there's different special teams that help with other issues. So we're the sort of the science ones. There's other ones that deal with public health and safety, and there's the Coast Guard strike teams that come in with all kinds of response expertise to help the Federal Unseen Coordinator. So we're one of those special teams brought in to assist the response. So some of the roles that it's identified for the scientific support coordinator to fill in the NCP as a principal advisor for scientific issues, communicating with the scientific community, and coordinating requests for assistance from state or federal agencies regarding scientific studies. So, and then in between incidents, the scientific support coordinators play active roles in regional response team activities and area committees. And so the regional response teams meet typically twice a year in various locations in the region. The next regional response team meeting for the Southeast is going to be the second week of May in Port Canaveral, Florida. So hopefully, if you guys have an interest, you're welcome to come join us for that meeting. If you need more details, let me know sometime today, and I can tell you exactly where and when it's going to be. But this brings together all the states in the region, all the federal agencies, and the co-chairs from the Coast Guard and the EPA to discuss regional planning and preparedness. So during response, we bring in this in-house NOAA scientific support team that assists with different fields of expertise: oceanography, biology, chemistry, geomorphology, natural resources, human health and safety, and technical information management. And this slide I kind of don't like because it says we respond to most major oil spills in the U.S. and more than 100 over the last per year over the last 4 decades. So when I started this job in 1980, I had over 100 per year just for my office alone. And now we're saying we have about 100 a year for everybody in the whole country. So I don't know. It's either we've gotten better or we're just not reporting things as much. But hopefully we're getting better. And that's a picture of one of the lifeboats from a tanker that sank off the coast of Spain that we went over and helped the Spanish government with the response to that oil spill, the Prestige. I don't know if any of you have heard of that one, but that was quite an experience. So the SSC, as I said, is kind of the single point of contact for NOAA resources that we might need during a response. And through this scientific support team, we coordinate all of that NOAA expertise as well as expertise outside of NOAA, and bring all that science into the picture to help hopefully have a better end result. And during response, you know, a lot of times we're faced with new problems or new issues we haven't dealt with before, and we sometimes create little science projects on scene to help us figure out better answers to some problem. There's some examples of some of the little command post science experiments we may typically get involved with, maybe testing a dispersant on a particular type of oil or something like that. And this is kind of how we organize what tools we have to bring to address problems throughout the course of a response through these 5 questions, and what tools and science and expertise we have to address these 5 questions. The first question we like to know the answers to are, what is it that got spilled, and everything we can know about what got spilled, the type of oil and the characteristics of that oil, the fate and behavior of that oil, the quantity, where it got spilled, when it got spilled, all of those questions. The next question was, we want to know, okay, now that we know what the details on what got spilled, we want to know where it's going to go. So then we put our oceanographers to work, and they start running models and developing oil spill trajectory models to help us figure out where the oil could go or will go or might go. And then we want to know within the pathway of that trajectory what that oil comes in contact with, or who does it hit, what kind of resources are at risk. We have a variety of tools to help us assess that, from environmental sensitivity index maps to working with local expertise too that know the area and the resources. Then we want to know, how does it hurt? And we have the fate and effect models that we can run and look at whether this is going to be a longer term chronic event or a shorter term acute event. How does it affect the resources that it comes in contact with, and for how long will it impact them? And then finally, the last question that we want to try to help the response with is, what can we do? What are the best methods to do to address the oil spill? We only want to do things that are going to speed recovery. So if it's going to, affect recovery in a negative way, then that's probably not the right solution. So assessing how to do it, what tools to bring, what kind of cleanup techniques to use, that's another way that the scientific support team can help. And just a big list of kind of some of the services that the scientific support team brings to an incident, from chemistry to the trajectories to the weather, biological assessments, the resources at risk, information management's getting to be a much bigger one, and we use our common operating picture now at most larger events, called IRMA, Environmental Response Management Application, which is all on that website address. More information about all of that. Trustee coordination, then we help also with spill exercises and designs and participation, and then lots of training throughout the year. I just finished up 3 different training courses within the past month: a shoreline cleanup and assessment training course, a science of oil spills training course, and we just did an inland spill response class for the Department of Interior in the state of Florida. So anybody in here familiar with the incident command system? This is kind of the organizational structure that gets formed to basically put together a company to go address the oil spill. And the functional elements that are identified are there's command, staff, and unified command and command staff. And then under that, there's the planning section, the operations section, the finance section, and the logistics section. And usually we do most of our scientific support functions within the planning section under the environmental unit. And so within that, where does the scientific support coordinator sit? We're on the command staff under unified command, but then we also coordinate with the environmental unit, where a lot of the scientific support team folks do most of their work. And this is some verbiage I'll just share with you out of the Coast Guard's Incident Management Handbook, just to show where it mentions SSCs and what we do. Under the entities that are part of the command staff, the scientific support coordinator is listed as one of those folks that are on command staff. And then just highlighting a few of the elements here under what the scientific support coordinator position entails. Again, it lists principal advisor to the Federal Unseen Coordinator for scientific issues. Serving in the command staff, the SSC should also coordinate with the environmental unit, and let's see, FOC can request just information about how you get SSC support, either through directly to the SSC or through the regional response team. SSCs serve on the FOSC's staff and may, at the request of the FOSC, lead the scientific support team and be responsible for providing scientific support for operational decisions and for coordinating on-scene scientific activity. So at any rate, this is all just part of the incident management handbook and where it goes through what SSCs are designated to support and do. And then it also lists here some major responsibilities of the SSCs, providing trajectories, seeking consensus on scientific issues affecting the response, developing the resources at risk, providing environmental hazards information of the spilled product, evaluating and response cleanup endpoints, integrating knowledge from government agencies, universities, community organizations, and industry. So it's that whole coordination role of working with everybody, not just internally, but externally as well. Assist the FOSC in evaluating the hazards and potential effects of an oil release and developing response strategies. That, again, that question of what can we do, and ensuring coordination between the damage assessment data collection efforts and data collection in support of response operations. So just some of the highlights there from what we're responsible for. And so some of our major activities, of course, response, which is really why we have a job, is to assist with emergency response, and some examples of some recent events that we have participated in. And then during response, as I said, you know, typically a lot of our work is focused through the environmental unit in the planning section. Oftentimes during major responses, we will coordinate and hold science meetings during response, and coordinate with other stakeholders and experts on scene to come up with better response solutions for that incident. And as I mentioned, participation in area committees and regional response teams is a big thing that we get involved with. And training, lots of different training classes that we get involved with. And then the other hat that I mentioned, typically the SSCs also serve as the NOAA Natural Resource Trustee. So we're there to sort of make sure that we're representing and coordinating with NOAA resource management entities to make sure their resources are considered during the response, and we're not affecting them through the response activities more than is absolutely necessary. And I think, yeah, that's it. And then there's my contact information and the new NOAA SSC doll that's available on eBay now. You can get one of those. And that's all I have. Thank you. Okay.